Hey everyone, we're just gonna get started with this session. We just have Andrew Milich with us today. Unfortunately, Akshay is not gonna be able to join this session, but he has sent us a very special video what he recorded for the Indian VCs Venture Summit. What we've been working together with Notion for this. So we created a template for VCs called Venture OS. So Akshay is gonna talk about that. So in this session, we have two parts. One is we're gonna talk about Notion, how you can use Notion for your pipeline management, portfolio activities, and other thing. We're gonna talk about new features which launched in Notion very recently. And from there, I'm gonna hand it over to Andrew. Andrew's gonna give a very exclusive sneak peek about uh, Notion Mail, which is in alpha testing. I've been using this Notion Mail for some time. It's one of the best mail. I've tried Superhuman and few other things, but this is really, really amazing. So I think the Notion Mail, we are one of the very few people exclusively having a sneak peek after Make with Notion. This is the time where Andrew is featuring and just showcasing it. So really excited for this. So very quickly, we're gonna start with the Akshay's video where he's talking about the Notion for VC's template what we created. So I'm gonna quickly play this one. Thank you.
All right. Hello. I'm Akshay. I'm one of the co-founders of Notion and good friend of PC. And PC and I thought it'd be good to just sort of walk you through some ideas of how you could run your VC operations. This is all credit to PC. He put it together, but I'm happy to sort of walk you through it a little bit. And then I'm hoping that in the session, you all can discuss how you all have it set up and ways you could be using Notion for it. So just to give you a little bit of the background, I think the biggest problem that I've seen talking to a lot of VCs is that information is pretty siloed. Each person either has their own folder or own Dropbox. Um, Nobody has access to other people's information very easily. A lot of emails and files feels like very much sort of how we used to work maybe a decade or two ago. And it doesn't have to be this way. I think there's very simple ways you can actually connect the work together. And you don't even have to use Notion. You could use a different product, but I think Notion is one of the tools that could bring you and your firm together. We'll walk you through an example of this. Um, Before we do that, I think you can sort of see this in the numbers. I think a lot of people, if you survey, they all wish work was more connected. People don't feel like they have access to all the information they need. And I think we're getting into a world where people are just buying more and more specialized tools. So Okta does this study where they find out the number of tools people use on average keeps going up. It's just literally like clockwork. It's growing every day, every year. And it's making work a lot more siloed, a lot more fragmented, a lot less connected. And so our hope is Notion can be your firm's connected AI workspace. And the idea is that you can use it for your own personal notes and docs. You can really create a knowledge hub for your entire company. And if needed, you can also really track projects. Certain deals that you're working on could all be managed collaboratively inside Notion. More and more, we are connecting Notion to other tools. So if you're using other tools like Airtable or Asana or Google Docs, we will build a bridge to it. You can pull out important information from it. And so anyways, all in all, we hope this actually really unlocks knowledge, reduces cost for you, and really increases efficiency of work. So let's jump in. I'm going to walk you through this Venture OS that we've created together. And there's three aspects of these. We'll be focusing on the deal flow part. And then I'm hoping that PC and team will walk you through other aspects of these as well, including the the ability to sort of create a wiki on Notion for your internal team as well. So in the next video, we can walk through the deal flow.
So we're gonna play the next one where we deep dive in.
Okay, so in this video, we're gonna do a quick walkthrough of the Venture OS. By the way, this is a page that has all these different templates that you can quickly, you can essentially copy over. PC can give you access to this. So Venture OS has these three parts to it. We're gonna spend most of the time with this deal flow template. So here, essentially, what we want to do is we want to track everything from someone submitting a form with their pitch all the way to seeing all the work that is happening inside a company. So this is starting with the form. Essentially, it's a public form that has been built by Notion, built inside Notion. This is one of the newer products we launched recently. And what it does is allows entrepreneurs to essentially send an email with all the send in their pitch essentially through this form. So once this comes in, and by the way, you can completely customize this, right? So you can change the cover icon, you can add more questions in here very easily, and so that happens. Now, once it comes in, you can then see all the startups that have applied, and we built some, a simple automation here. So, for example, it automatically emails them that, we received their pitch. It can notify a certain Slack channel. It can update the status of these deals. And so, you can build all sorts of automations that takes care of it. Now, inside the company too, you can see that it's been organized in a way from having the people that someone's met to having these core information tracked here. You can obviously make this your own, but we've given you like a standard template that allows all the information that you collect about this company in a more consistent way. So this sort of gives you this brief, so you can, someone can quickly dive in and learn more about product limitations or product offering. We've also created a separate tab for investment thesis that you can easily use to write about the company, and then we obviously have a data room, so you can track all the different files you've gotten over the course of. So essentially, it's just like a template that you can use for every deal that's coming in. Now, if you go back, you can also see all these deals in Kanban board just by stages. And this gives you the ability to sort of like dive in to the same set of information that we saw in the previous page. Of course, if you work inside a company with lots of associates and partners, you can now track this data across people. It's pretty straightforward. And then you of course have like simple analytics you can do across all the deals coming in, and you can customize this chart by whatever you feel, with the different types of chart types or also different types of data that you have here. So that's roughly the deal flow. And as you can see, everything from some new deal coming in to what people's information is are all connected to a single database that you see here. This database is then connected to two of these other databases. People is where you track all the people the company has met across different companies. So you have a database of that. And then the other one is meetings, which is similarly different meetings with different participants. And so these are the three databases that are basically connected. And that becomes like the core of how you work. The other thing you can do is, of course, you can, create a firm team. So you can create this external homepage as well as like the internal wiki. And these are pretty easy to create inside Notion. And, if you have like a program for startups, you can also create a lot of portfolio materials and make them public. So roughly that's the Venture OS. There's obviously a lot more you can do, but hopefully that gives you a quick peek into how you can run your business on Notion.
Perfect. we had a very quick sneak peek about what we can do with Notion for VCs. Again, there are different use cases, lot can be done. We thought we'll just give like a very, very short sneak peek here. Probably it's another session like where we can, dive into what can be done. There's a new features like automation mails, which is really great. But before we discuss this, thought like we'll take this opportunity to see more about Notion Mail. I'm gonna give it to Andrew. So he's gonna give like a very short sneak peek about Notion Mail, and it's very, very interactive. So please feel free to participate. And if you have any question, please post in the comments, like in the chat. We're gonna answer it as much as possible so we can respond here. Thank you. Over to you, Andrew.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Andrew. I previously started a company that made encrypted email for the last 3.5 years. We were acquired by Notion in February and now work full steam ahead on Notion Mail. So I'll give you a preview of why we built Notion Mail, because I know VCs use email for all their communications, memos, reviews, rejections, everything. And then also, need to get a lot out of email. So you're using, maybe Superhuman, you're maybe using Gmail, and I'm curious, we'll get to that later. So first, we'll just start by talking about why Notion built email, what you hope to get out of it. We'll run through like maybe 10 minutes of just some cool slides that we use to introduce Notion Mail, and then give you a demo and answer any questions. So generally, in our opinion, as Akshay went through, like work has been too siloed, and in the email space, it hasn't really changed in 20 years. In India, I know, some startups like Zoho have found really great consumer success, but I think the real dominant last word in email has been Gmail. And I'm curious, like maybe if people type in the chat, if you're not using Gmail, I'm curious what you're using. I think Outlook maybe is a second. But Gmail has really been ubiquitous for consumer email and Google Workspace for like this startup generation. But Gmail was launched in 2004, and that was when our computers looked like this. We had like Internet Explorer, AOL messaging, and Notepad. And as Akshay showed, today we have tools like Notion, where you're doing all your work in a much more flexible, kind of connected workspace. Slack, so you can do internal messaging in a much richer way. Video calling like we're doing now, this type of event would have been totally impossible to host 20 years ago. But the Google, Gmail inbox is really similar. It's the same sidebar, the same labels, the same structured inbox, and that's pretty much it. So as I mentioned, our team started working on email 4 years ago. We really focused on it from kind of a privacy lens, but I think more and more we built features that were about, organizing your inbox. People were overwhelmed with newsletters, spam, all the incoming emails that made it impossible to use email. And so, we started by focusing on privacy, but we ended up building features like unsubscribe and just like mass cleaning out your inbox and giving people ways to have hundreds of email aliases and their own domains. And so we realized, those features are great, but they're kind of getting more towards this direction of building kind of a connected, more powerful workspace instead of just building, a Gmail that's more private. So just to, talk about why, your email matters. I'm sure everyone knows this, but, it's where you deal with so many different steps of your deal flow. The first step in meeting a company comes from meeting invites and cold emails, and probably even your venture firm's recruiting. Your companies are dealing with, taxes, sales, and support all the time. And the cost of missing any one of these, a single email about tax, a single, cold email pitch, or an invite, for your first meeting with a company is just so high and important. And then on more of the boring side, we're getting flooded with notifications. Email's really our only way to get updates from, Notion, Figma, Airtable, whatever we're using for our work. It's how we're sending out all sorts of project updates and, the venture world, legal contracts as well. A deal doesn't get done without a million back and forths with legal teams. And I don't know of anyone who's using anything other than email. And I'm sure there's a lot of stress and pain around, missing an email, making sure people get back on time, all that stuff. So we were frustrated by those problems, and people's inboxes are overflowing, And that means that, out of like 20 emails in your inbox, one might really, really matter. But because of the way the tool is structured, it's a chronological list of unread emails. It's really hard to find that single message that really matters. But more than that, once you find it, writing emails is frustrating. The text editor in Outlook is really poor. I think the text editor in Zoho also leaves a lot to be desired. And the text editor in Gmail feels a bit like it was built in 2004. You have like no emojis, you have no slash command like you'd have in Notion, you have no kind of simple way to navigate around using Markdown, or just like the modern pieces of text editing have been completely left behind by email. And so that means like the compose experience is frustrating. You go to your sent folder all the time to copy and paste the same thing over again. You might maintain your email templates outside of email, which means that your email app has just failed because you need 2 to 3 apps to just manage your inbox. And we're changing all of that. The last piece that's really important to us is organizing your email. It's really frustrating. In this example on the left, I tried to put things that were relevant to venture. But the pain is that the more you add labels like this, the more tax you pay to organize. So it's really this perverse reversed incentive where you add more labels and you have to spend more time and more pain to organize your inbox. And I'm sure, there are people listening on this call who would love to have a really organized inbox, but you've tried in the past and then it just gets to be too frustrating. And you let a few days go by, and emails come in, and you lose your whole system. And so at Notion Mail, we can actually have AI apply labels completely for you based on a prompt, like a ChatGPT style prompt. And then hopefully, instead of building up a system that adds time, you kind of have built a system that saves you time every time it runs. Or if you make a rule like all the emails from my lawyer should go into the legal contracts label, that's something an AI can do repetitively, and it's not a tax that you pay like every time you organize blocks. So, those are, I think, a pretty clean summary of the problems, and I hope Akshay's demo of Notion gave you a hint of how we could make email work a lot better. That means that your email feels like a database, not just like a never-ending list of emails kind of coming in. So you can see here, this is a kind of email view of customer support emails, and it's organized by priority. So high, low, open, with labels specific to each request, instead of just a list of kind of tickets based on when someone sent their notes. I hope people have tried Notion before and you know what it's like to write in Notion. It feels amazing. It's fast, it's performant. It gives you all these shortcuts and tools like, tables and splash commands. It gives you nice kind of things to make your emails and docs look beautiful, like, call outs and headings and emojis and quote blocks. And it also does a lot of kind of opinionated formatting of your emails. So you've probably seen so many emails that just look ugly and bad. We want to give you pre-styled building blocks for your emails that look better and feel a lot better when you use them. There are also some special features that we built. So, VCs do a ton of scheduling. Some of you are lucky enough to have people who probably do scheduling for you. Some of you spend a lot of time on it. So we built an integration with Notion Mail and Notion Calendar for this blue schedule button. And we're working on the UX of it exactly. But that will actually, if you insert it, it will look at the content of your email and then make a Calendly-like booking link so people can schedule with just one click. So I'll give a demo of that shortly. Just like that problem I talked about, where you're sending the same email 10 times. We built features called snippets and auto reply, where AI and automation can help you. So with a snippet, you can save emails you've previously written into templates. I'll show you how to do that, and I'll show you how to write them using knowledge from your Notion workspace. So it's just saving you tons of time and energy. And then auto reply is where AI can actually do all that for you. So if you say, write back a scheduling email, we have a feature that will read your email and then do the whole process of finding times that you're free, making a booking link, and then sending a reply. And I imagine people here do so much scheduling. The last is that labeling feature I mentioned too, where if you can write a prompt to describe how you want your inbox to be labeled, we can basically have AI do that for you in the background every time you get a new email. And that's a real game changer, no matter what you do, whether it's customer service, recruiting, or investing. There are tons of cases like that. And if you never want to miss an email, AI can be, think of it as your assistant to help you not lose things and get things done. So there you go. We're going to give you a tour really shortly. I'm going to switch to screen sharing from this screen to screen sharing Notion Mail. And we'll go through Compose, we'll go through snippets, we'll go through those views of your email that aren't just time-based. I just have a really quick request. Just for the sake of the demo, it's a lot of fun when it's interactive. So please, if you can, we'll spend 2 minutes or a minute on this slide. Send me an email right now. And I'd love to just use those emails in a quick demo. And I'll leave this up here for 30 seconds. Thanks, PC. All right. Okay, I have a couple demo emails coming in. Maybe people are still emailing. All right, I got uh, at least one. Okay, cool. And we'll head over to Notion Mail now. So, lots coming in. All right, sorry everyone, give me 5 seconds finding the window. All right, can everyone see? You should see Notion Mail now. Well, welcome. It should look really familiar for any Notion users, but it should also, look a little new. We have a ton of new features. Oh, and I see emails actually coming in right now. So thanks everyone who's writing that. So it's actually just syncing right now directly to my Gmail. So right now it works with Gmail and Google Workspace with more providers coming, but it's syncing an exact copy. It'll sync my labels. It'll just basically get me set up with a really kind of quick getting started. But even more than that, you all were sending me emails in real time about recruiting. I see some more coming in. And Notion Mail, just like I mentioned, is actually reading, labeling, and writing drafts in response to them, as we're discussing. So in this one, it wrote back, with a schedule button using my schedule template. In this one, it just wrote, I guess, asking for more details because this email is empty. And I assume this one is still running, but we've suggested 3 initial responses, right here. So now let's just imagine, Notion Mail is kind of doing a first pass at labeling and drafting all emails that are coming in. And let's move into, a different format of the inbox. So right here basically is an example of changing my inbox from just being chronological to being based on, the labels and the information that matters to me. So I see, some of those emails that were coming in right here already, like Yash said, hey. But you can imagine that if this were a really important kind of cold email from a founder, I could either have AI, assign the important label or just automatically, move it into a to-do list section of my inbox. And now I've got this kind of email that's, not based on time, but based on a set of rules that matter to me, and I'll see those emails right at the top. And all of this is totally customizable. So you've never really seen an inbox that does this. But imagine that, I wanted my to-do emails at the top. I didn't want to use the important label, and then I kind of wanted to keep that out there. And instead of calling it to do, I said like cold inbound, emails go at the top. And that's how I'm going to do work on my email. So now when I go and Yash comes in, I can have this label either manually or with AI. And now I can actually, get work done on this email. So let's go into Compose. And as I talked about, you've got all of the familiar Compose features you'd like in Notion. So I could start with saying, dear Yash, thanks for reaching out. And then, here are some times for us. How about in early December? So now I mentioned that whole schedule button, and I'm just gonna use a button here to insert my availability, and that connects to Notion Calendar. And what it's done is it's already read the email and figured out times on my calendar that I'm free and that makes sense based on the email. So you can see that it's chosen, December 4th, 5th, and 6th, not just like the next 3 times on my calendar. And that's because I wrote this, I said, let's meet in December. And I could also say, let's say you have some founder or cold emailer who's giving you a lot of trouble, let's check in January, or let's discuss in January, or the schedule button will be responsive to your preferences. Oh, I guess that did sooner. But it should be responsive to your preferences, and you can always add dates for whenever you want based on your calendar. And that will just create a one-click kind of Calendly style booking link for you to schedule meetings without any back and forth. The second piece of that is, the scheduling, the auto reply. And so here's I guess this is from a couple weeks ago, but here's a, example email I got from a student at Northeastern University, who wants to chat about open roles. We saw how you can manually write that email, but we can actually have AI do that whole process for you, where it's going to read the email and write a response, and put that schedule button right into the email so that you don't have to do all of the, messing around with dates and everything else. We'll give it a minute. Sometimes, I don't know, takes a minute or two. Oh no, maybe it decided not to schedule on this one. But anyway, it basically would have done that, back and forth with the schedule button, and I'll have to see what went wrong with that. But even more than that, I wanted to give you a preview of snippets as well. I know you use so many pre-selected, I'm sure you write the same emails again and again and again. Here's another email about, access to Notion Mail, like a classic VC, I've got a great rejection snippet sent up. This one actually customizes the snippet to the first name of the sender. And then it just has a little, memo that I've written. And in the future, if I wanted to add, I can later kind of customize it. You showed, an incredible product demo, and I'm excited to keep in touch. But I guess even more than that, even more than just doing snippets, Notion Mail can actually write emails based on your Notion docs as well. And what that means is, if I do this kind of AI writing assistant button, I can actually mention Notion pages and then draft emails based on that. So I have a full, snippet about some companies that I mentioned in India that are, raising money, and I put that in my investment notes. And so it's write a theme-based summary of my investment notes. And so in the future, you can imagine writing a rejection email with your notes, stored in Notion, and then Notion Mail can basically summarize all of that, in your rejection mail or in your feedback email or anything else. And so it's just done that right now. It read my notes, which is about some, large pre-IPO companies in India, and gave me a summary of themes. And so that's all happening with the context of your workspace, and then with, of course, the powers of AI to generate and summarize, themes about great companies like Flipkart. There you go. So now we'll show you a couple more, demos, and just some really simple things on customization. So we built a whole library of templates to help you manage your inbox, and those are use case based. Most of them are a little more specific than VCs. You do recruiting, you probably do some element of, I don't know, a ton of calendaring. And so some of these will apply to you. We need a Venture OS style template that Akshay showed. So we'll be getting there. But just to show you how customizable things are, imagine if I'm going through a recruiting process and I'm either recruiting, a new partner or a new founder. Using that, I can create an inbox that's based on the people I'm working with at the time. So let me just add a few people from here. Here's an initial look. And I'll get an inbox, focused on those people. But as I showed before with customizing the labels, there's so much that you can do here to make Notion Mail really specialized for your use case. And so that even means, adding a piece of information like, notes. So if I add a notes property, let's go into this email from Gilbert, and I could say like, prioritize Gilbert's work because it blocks, Notion's 24 release cycle. So I can, add notes like that, custom properties, just like I'm using Notion, and then I can even show those in the inbox. So here you'll see, my note just kind of displayed as a label. But if I wanted to elevate that to be, all I see in the inbox in a recruiting view, I could even move it here and not show the email subject. So now I could say, like, let's look at this email from Ryan and say, like, ignore this discussion. I'll see that also in my inbox as well. And I'll just put the subject back for people to see what's going on here. But that's really the power of Notion Mail. It like takes your entire inbox, breaks it apart into these Lego style building blocks, and then lets you customize them for your use cases. And then if you go back into your inbox, you probably want to keep it, clean and organized. You can apply filters so you don't, see any of those open emails in your inbox at all. So I'll say, let's hide all my emails that are museum labeled. Move that to a new filter. And now, I've cleaned out, newsletters from my inbox. And I guess the last piece is for Notion fans, you'll find a lot of similar design language and features. So when you're customizing the properties in your inbox, it should feel like you're using Notion. When you're grouping by, different elements of whether it's, the people view or the status or the priority, that should feel like grouping a database in Notion. And when you start to think about your email as a database, you get all of these really special properties that you start to want, where you have views on your database as how you're setting up your inbox instead of just labels. You have custom properties based on each use case, like recruiting and priority, and you could group by really advanced properties that aren't just like time, basically. So I have candidates in resume review, interviewing and accepted offer phases, depending on my workflow. And I guess the last really cool demo is, for people who like to move fast, you probably archive tons of emails all at once. And so, we have a little archive button right here. And of course, a great reminders feature if you want to save time. So, I haven't done any work on this email, so I'll just move it into my reminders. But more than that, all those actions are also custom. So I'll say, like, let's, add a hover label action and apply the, Notion label with the, bookmark button, and, even archive emails with that label too. So if you have a specific workflow where it's like label and archive specific emails, we can help you with that. And so let's say this design email, the application looks great, but I'm not looking, and I'll click the button and it will label and archive all at once. So this is just in alpha right now. It's the earliest iteration of Notion Mail. Literally only, some hundreds of people are using it, but hundreds of thousands of people are on the wait list. And the long-term vision of Notion Mail is opening up a whole new front for Notion to transform how you work. Where imagine drafting emails based on your notes, where all of your data is connected together. None of it's siloed in one app and another. And then instead of just feeling like you're paying a tax when you organize, like you may be in email already, AI and labels and views can help you stay organized automatically, where emails are coming into the right sections, they're getting labeled by AI, and drafts are really painless to write with your snippets and other features like that. So yeah, this is just the first preview, and even on this call, I see some bugs that we need to fix, but it'll be going out to the public in early 2025. If you're already a Notion user, we'd love for you to try it. So you can always email me or contact PC, and we can get you on Notion Mail. But we would ask, please provide feedback, explain to us how you want to use Notion Mail, and what else we can do to make it really great for you. So I'll just switch back to the slides for one last recap slide, and then I think PC will do Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. I think this was very, very helpful. Like, been using this Notion Mail, and I was like, okay, this is crazy.
That's great to hear. Yeah, it needs to be perfect. People's expectations of email are so high, and Notion now has millions and millions of users, including tons of VC users. So email is like your most critical tool in your job, and it needs to look perfect and work perfectly. So it needs to be great. But anyway, I hope this at least recaps some things we showed you, or I showed you, with some automation of your email, snippets and views. And then I'm curious, like, please give me feedback as you can. But we're trying to get more towards like a model of sharing these views, helping you access your data across your different apps. So the AI drafting based on docs and scheduling are examples of that, where the more Notion apps work together, the better they are. You don't have to, have 3 different tools to schedule, like maybe Notion Calendar, Google Calendar, and Calendly. What a pain. You can kind of stay in the Notion ecosystem. And then right now, Notion Mail works with Gmail, but we really hope that it works with other providers, and in the future is its own email as well. You can just sign up for Notion and get an email address without needing a Google account or a Microsoft account. That's it. Happy to cover any questions about Notion Mail or just about Notion.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. We'll open for questions, so people feel free to post some questions in the message section, chat, or in the Q&A. So we will pick those questions and put it into the stage. Or you can also raise the mic. We're gonna bring you on stage. So any questions?
PC, do you have any feedback on Notion Mail?
Yeah, like one thing which I really loved about the Notion Mail is the schedule feature. I think we've been using for a long time. What used to be like a a 3-step or 4-step process. Someone's gonna send me a mail, and I have to check my calendar and reply to them about that, and then they will again confirm, and we schedule a calendar, right? Have to send the invite. Now the whole thing is get shot into one small thing, which I really love, because it works interconnected. Never thought it's possible before it was to be a EA job. The whole thing is kind of made simple.
Totally.
And I think
some things I demoed also we haven't even released yet.
Yeah, maybe one more thing which I really loved is the the snippet feature, which is very underappreciated. What I used to do before is we used to have like whenever I used to reject or close a deal with a founder startup, I have a set of templates, maybe like 15, 20 variations of template to different stakeholders for different reasons and other thing. Every time when I'm gonna, close the mail, I'm gonna copy paste every those templates either from the Notion
Yeah.
or it was in my mail. So I copy those things, I'm gonna paste into the mail and send them. And now it's very simple because I already have a snippet and I already shared them. It's gonna be super helpful and super short, super easy,
Yeah.
which I really love. Which I really really love.
Totally agree.
Okay, cool. If there's any question, people just type in the chat. Uh, so Andrew, one more feature probably we can show us, like can talk about the how the tagging happens, right? How this grouping happens, because it took a lot of time. Even when I got the alpha, we started
Yeah.
trying it out. It become was really really hard. So someone asked, like, what is the timeline?
Yeah.
Um, what's the timeline for the public release of Notion Mail?
Yeah, great question. It's going to be publicly released in early 2025. So we're giving people early access right now, but that the roadmap is probably at least another few months till the beginning of 2025. One note though, if you'd like early access, we do onboard people really frequently. PC Notion ambassadors, Notion community, and just people that we know and have met. So we can definitely give access sooner as well.
I can take bribes, if you want Notion Mail access, you can ping me and I can talk
Exactly.
with Andrew and get you a. We have one more question. It's on Notion calendar. There's still
Oh
not
yeah,
an allowed to have
great
Notion.
question. I hope it is. I'll have to look into that. We're just starting, like basically Notion Mail is just a web and desktop experience. We're building the iPad, iOS, and Android apps now, um, and I'll make sure we work on that.
Okay. Uh, any more questions? Any final questions? If not, we'll just like close this. Uh, Actually, it's on Venture OS. Also, I'm gonna post the link to Sorry, this was the mail function. Sorry, my bad. If you want to join the waitlist, you can join the waitlist. Just click here. You can go here to just get onto the waitlist of Notion Mail. And if you want early access, just ping me. We can see what we can do. So, yeah, I think there's one more question. Can you help us understand how Notion Forms plus Mail can make portfolio management easy, especially uh, the monthly or quarterly data collection from portfolio founders?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd imagine both can serve purposes here, and depending on what you prefer, you could use either. Forms are really structured and simple, so you could make a form like Akshay showed. It can be external, so you can share it with anyone. They don't need a Notion account, and they could submit structured data like numbers and written updates and even files. Notion Mail is more of an email client, and so if you were collecting like portfolio updates in Notion Mail, I'd imagine you would create a snippet, so like a form or a request or a prompt, then use that repeatedly or create a mailing list, and send that to a group of people. And so it's depending on how you would want to collect that. If you want it to be done over email, you could uh, create a snippet and send it out. Or you could create a form and then send that form out over email. I think that's a great question of can we combine the creating the Notion form and then sending it out together. And Google has a great Gmail, Google Forms integration. So maybe there's a future like Notion Forms and Mail integration, and that would be great.
Yep. There's some automation, but it's not like it's very native in Notion, but it's not native in Mail. Probably that should be very interesting
Yeah.
combo to have. Perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's all from us. We don't have any more questions. So thank you everyone for joining this session. So let us know. We'll keep you posted on Notion Web. Thank you. See you in the next one.
Thanks, PC. Great to meet everyone.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for joining at this time. I think it's in SF. It's at 5 a.m. I think I texted Andrew to check if he can join, and he was so kind to join
Yeah,
at this
of
time.
course.
Thanks, Andrew. See you then.
My pleasure.
See you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.